23-year-old Audrey Smith is suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old John Grody, for crashing her VW Jetta. Audrey says John had been drinking and lost his cool.
All rise.
That's case number 130 on the calendar in the matter of Smith versus Grody. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Smith, according to what I've read in your complaint, you and Mr. Grody were dating. You went to a Christmas party with him using your car. He drove home from the Christmas party. There was an accident, and he totaled your car. You were a passenger in the car. You want $5,000 so that you can buy a new car, and Mr. Grody says that it was, in fact, an accident. There was snow and ice on the road, and you should have had better insurance if the car was so valuable. That's your defense, right? Okay. Let's see. This Christmas party was on what date?
December 4th of 2004.
And how far from your home was the Christmas party?
Well, from my home, it was about an hour and a half. From where John lives, it was about 40 minutes.
And I see from your complaint that it was originally your intention to sleep over.
Yes.
And you had hotel reservations.
I do not know if there was hotel reservations. I did call to get a receipt for the hotel reservations. They said that...
You made arrangements to stay over.
I did not. John said that he was going to make all the arrangements.
Okay. And that was because...
It was his Christmas party.
And you were both going to be drinking.
Yes.
So that was a very wise thing, to make arrangements to stay over.
Okay, we didn't make arrangements before we got there. Our whole thing was actually that we were going home that night. When we got there was when everybody said, oh, we're all staying here, so do you want to stay? And originally she said she didn't want to stay.
And what about you?
We didn't have the money to stay.
Your Honor.
Just a second, he's talking. Go ahead.
So when we were actually, when we were there, and I said, all right, well then, I wanted to stay there. She said we didn't have the money to stay there, so the plan was to drive home after that.
Who didn't have the money?
Both of us. Either of us.
So you didn't have the money either?
Well, I offered to pay. I mean, I had a credit card on me. I could have paid, but then she said she didn't want me to. So the plan was to go home.
Mr. Grody, were you drinking?
Yes, I was.
Was she drinking?
Yeah, she was.
Then you find the money to stay over.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Now, what time did you leave the party?
I had to be around 12:30.
And what time had you arrived at the party?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
I believe it was around 8 o'clock.
What kind of alcohol were you consuming that day, Miss Smith?
I had some wine with dinner, and then in the bar area, I was drinking Captain and Diet Coke.
And what were you drinking, Mr. Grody?
Corbel and Diet Coke.
Corbel and Diet Coke. Is that a mix?
It is for me.
What, really? I mean, do you mix those two together, or you drink the Coke as a chaser?
No, I mix them together.
You mix them together?
Yep. I'm a brandy boy, sorry.
I guess it ain't a mimosa. I guess it's a Melissa.
Melissa, that's cute. It's cute. I wouldn't record it anywhere, but it's cute. How many of these bizarre drinks did you have that evening?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. So you know that you were in no position to be driving home.
Before we left, I did stop drinking a while before we actually did leave.
How old are you, sir?
23.
How many hours into the drive home did you have this accident?
About 40 minutes. We were about a mile away from my house.
Is there a police report?
Yes, I have an accident report.
You're driving on a suspended license?
No.
Did you have a license?
Yes, I did.
It says that you were cited for driving too fast for the conditions, failure to notify police of an accident,
Correct.
and operating after a suspension.
Right. Actually, everything didn't go through. I actually paid the ticket that I had it suspended for before that, but it didn't go through in that township.
What was your license suspended for?
For not paying a ticket or not appearing in court for a speeding ticket.
Did you get a ticket for driving too fast for the conditions?
Yes, I did.
Okay. According to your complaint, Ms. Smith, he was angry that evening when you left.
Yes.
Is that right? Tell me about it.
Well, we were all just, socializing, and I went up to the bar to get a drink. And while I was waiting for my drink, a guy just randomly struck up a conversation with me. We were just chatting while I was waiting, and apparently John here didn't like that, and he came up and he had made a remark to the individual that was talking to me. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I could definitely, he was aggressive in his body language towards this guy. So I really didn't want to, you know, push the issue. I just stayed where I was, thought that he would just, you know, have like 5 minutes of cool down time and I would stay there. But then immediately he came back up to me and he just said, "We're leaving now." And
what time was that?
I believe it was around 12:15.
Okay, and did you leave?
Yes.
And you let him drive?
Well, I didn't, yes. Physically, I let him drive because I knew I could not physically stop him from driving. He had possession of my keys because I allowed him to drive us to the party. And so he was angry. I was very scared. He's much larger than I am.
Shouldn't have gotten into the car.
I understand. I shouldn't have gotten into the car.
The car's just steel, replaceable.
Understandable. I was clearly not thinking about the best thing. Yes, and also, even if it hadn't been drinking, I believe due to the scare factor, I just didn't want him to, of course, damage my property that I worked very hard. And I know that's a very irrational thought. You know, my body is much more precious than a chunk of metal, like you said.
You're right. So what happened on the way home?
He just kept saying that, why were you talking to this guy? This was my party. You're my girlfriend. Being very possessive, being very jealous.
Okay. And some of the booze talking, too.
Possibly, yeah.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I freaked out and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. You know, we're on country roads and you've been drinking." But it was too late. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now."
And later today.
Did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No.
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Audrey Smith says ex-boyfriend John Grody crashed her VW Jetta while driving drunk. Audrey also says John was irate when he got behind the wheel.
Keep going.
And so he was speeding because he was getting agitated. And I looked at the speedometer, and it was at 80 miles per hour. And I freaked out, and I said, "John, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. It's dark. You know, we're on country roads, and you've been drinking." But it was too late. Then next thing I remember was him saying, "Oh." And then I blacked out momentarily. And then the next thing I remember, he was saying, "Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now." And I was very disoriented. And so he pulled me out through the driver's side door. And...
Okay.
I was going 85 about 10 miles before we actually crashed. I slowed down before we actually went around that curve because I go around that curve every day. I know that it's a bad curve and there's accidents there all the time.
What kind of car were you driving?
A 99 Volkswagen Jetta.
The car was totaled?
Yes.
Did you tell her that you were going to get her another car?
We had a car at work. I'm auto mechanic.
That's not my question.
Yes, I told her that I was going to buy her the car that we had at work and fix it for her, and it was more than equivalent to what she had. She said she didn't want that car. And after that, I'm not obligated, I did not feel obligated to actually buy her a car. I thought it was just a nice gesture for me to do.
It's not a nice gesture, sir. You caused an accident.
Right.
Your lack of judgment, by virtue of the fact that you had been drinking all night, your lack of judgment and getting behind the wheel and being emotionally agitated with her that evening, which you clearly were. There's no question in my mind that that happened.
Right.
The police indicate that you were driving in excess of the speed limit. Your answer that you provided me says that you had this accident because of the road conditions, because it was icy, going in excess of the speed limits, which the police document.
It says too fast for conditions now.
That's absolutely right. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the conditions. Too fast for the hour of the evening. It was dark. Too fast for the fact that you had been drinking champagne and Coke a whole night. All of those things put together suggest to me that this was not an accident brought about by virtue of the fact that accidents sometimes happen. You were doing the wrong thing. And because you were doing the wrong thing, she doesn't have a car anymore.
Right.
So take care of that. You have the Blue Book value on your car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it, please.
I did give her my car, by the way.
Shouldn't have it anymore, does she?
Yeah.
Yes, I do have, it was signed over to me, but I also have the NADA value of that.
Just a second. Hold it, my dear. You accepted the car from him and you registered it
Not at first. At first, he gave it to me. He said, you can borrow this car until I buy you the replacement for your totaled vehicle.
Okay.
I said, thank you. I told him, like, well, you know what? I'm going to take the car for now, and then I'm going to sue you for the rest.
Is that what she said to you?
Yep.
What kind of car did you give her?
95 Corsica Chevy.
Are you telling me that you signed the title over to her?
Correct.
And she said to you, I'm going to take this car, but I'm going to sue you for the rest of the money that I think you owe me, and you said, okay, I'm going to sign over the car anyway? Mm-hmm. Why in the world would you do that?
Because otherwise, if I took the car back from her, how would she get anywhere?
What do you care?
I don't want to be a jerk. I understand that she didn't have a car because of me, and I didn't want to be a jerk. I wanted her to be able to get around.
You've been driving this car since April?
I've actually been driving it since the accident happened. And the reason why I needed it transferred over into my name is because I found out that he did not carry insurance on it. And I was driving the car, and I need insurance. And in order to carry insurance, it has to be registered in my name. So that's why I had to do that. Otherwise, again, I would be left with no car.
Okay. Why don't you have her do this? Why don't you have her sign this title back over to him?
Signature of the seller, I guess.
Okay. Can I borrow your pen? Thank you.
Good. Now he's got his car back. Go pick it up.
Okay.
It's yours. And now you'll pay her $5,000 so she can go out and buy a car. Judge for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's
Thank you, Judge.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I thought it was, I guess, fair.
Of course I'm happy. I won. You know, yay.
I was just upset that she wasn't with the party.
He just kept saying, you know, this is my party, you're my guest, and you should be by my side the entire night.
That's pretty much all it was about.
Really have no, beef with him other than this.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Marquez versus Welfare, step forward, please.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
How old are you, Mr. Marquez?
I'm 23. I'll be 24 in a couple days.
Before you moved in with Miss Welfare and her two children, where were you living?
I was living with my parents.
And when did you move in with Miss Welfare?
I moved in with her in mid-October of 2003.
And how long did you live there?
I lived there until the beginning of April.
And where were you working during that time?
The whole time I was working at Denny's restaurant.
Part-time?
Part-time, yes. I also coached football at the local elementary school.
What was your financial arrangement when you were living with Miss Welfare?
We paid half. I paid $300, she paid $300.
For rent?
For rent, correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
What about the rest of the expenses?
We usually split those down the middle as well.
And what were you doing, Miss Welfare?
I also had two jobs. I was working at two separate restaurants.
Okay. This is what the complaint is about. The complaint says that while you were living there, you purchased a washer and dryer. When you moved out in April of 2004, you told Miss Welfare that she could keep them for a while because you had no place to take them because you were moving back with your parents. A year later, you finally get your own place. You let her know you want your washer and dryer back, and she says, forget it.
Actually, I did have a place to put them. I have a receipt for my storage space, which I purchased in April 17th of 2004 as well, which was actually 5 days after I moved everything out of the apartment.
All right, so you didn't want to put it in your storage space because...
Well, she has two children, and we've been to the laundromat together, and it takes quite a long time to do laundry. And since my parents already had a washer and dryer, I had no need for them at that time. And I had just purchased them in March of that year, which had only been about a month. So I figured I might as well get some use out of them by leaving them at her apartment.
That's somewhat correct, but not completely correct.
23-year-old Joe Marquez is suing his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old student Jamie Welfare, for selling his washer and dryer. Jamie claims the appliances were a Mother's Day gift from Joe.
Well, let me hear what your version of the events were.
When he bought those for me, it was an early Mother's Day gift. I was the one doing all the laundry. He never even did his own laundry. I was doing my laundry, his laundry, and both of my children's laundry. And between the two jobs and being at the laundromat all the time, it was a lot of time away, and so we had been discussing, him buying a washer and dryer for me, and he was looking online and said, hey, come and pick the one you want. And so I picked the one I want. He gave them to me. When he moved out, I was sleeping when he moved out. You know, our relationship had gotten kind of rocky. There was never any discussion about me giving them back, ever.
When, for the first time, did you contact her with regard to retrieving these 2 items?
Your Honor, as she said, I moved out at the very beginning of April of 2004. We didn't talk for 2 weeks afterwards. After that, we, began phone conversations, and actually on May 5th of 2004, she came over to my house, my parents' house, for a little Cinco de Mayo get-together. In May of 2004, I gave Miss Welfare $100 because she was having a rough time making it on her own in the apartment, and I have here a check for utilities / other stuff I gave to Miss Welfare for $100 to help her out.
Could you answer my question?
Sure.
You remember what my question was?
Yes, I do. Have we ever talked about it? About the washer and dryer?
When, for the first time, did you ask for it back?
I first asked for it back when I found out I was moving out with my current girlfriend, which was in March of 2005.
Okay, so between April of 2004 and March 2005, you had absolutely no discussion with her about this washer and dryer.
That is incorrect. When I gave her that check, which was dated May 20th of 04, we had discussed it. She actually wanted to purchase the washer and dryer fully. She wanted to give me payments per month. And I told her that since we were becoming good friends, I did not want the only conversation to be between us about the washer and dryer.
At that time, Mr. Marquez, did you believe that the friendship would rekindle into a relationship?
No. Actually, when we first broke up,
Mr. Marquez, don't insult my intelligence.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You don't go from being lovers to friends without somebody hoping for a little bit more.
That is correct. Yes.
So during that time, and during the time, according to you, she said, why don't you let me make payments on it? You said, no.
Correct.
And now you have a new girlfriend.
Yes, I do.
You moving into an apartment together?
We have currently moved into an apartment as of the 9th of April.
And I assume it doesn't have a washer and dryer.
Actually, it does. After this little skirmish between me and my ex-girlfriend, my current girlfriend went out and purchased one, hoping it would make me feel a little bit better.
Did it?
I was very, very pleased that she would show that much friendship towards me. But I wasn't very angry about the washer and dryer. I was angry at the fact that she took me for granted that I was being nice and letting her borrow the washer and dryer when I could have just put them in my storage.
Get over it. There is something that doesn't ring true, sir, about your story that you told her more than a year ago, that I'm letting you use this piece of equipment that breaks down, that once it's used, it becomes less functional. I'm going to let you use that for as long as it takes. And it just so happens that the time that you want it back is when you're moving in with a new girlfriend. By the way, whose washer and dryer is the new one that was purchased?
It is hers.
I just want her to hear that.
Yes, I've told her that many times.
Very good. And you know whose this is?
Yes.
Hers. Thank you. That's it. Have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. 19-year-old student Justin Sherman is suing 21-year-old student Jothan Schiller for purposely ramming the back of his car. Justin claims it was retribution from a prior incident.
All rise. That's case number 79 on the calendar in the matter of Sherman versus Schiller. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, gentlemen. Have a seat.
Mr. Sherman, you and Mr. Schiller used to be friends, according to the complaint that I read. It is your claim that after an evening of drinking, Mr. Schiller purposely damaged your car.
Yes.
Mr. Schiller says that he did not damage your car, and in any event, you don't take responsibility for things that you do because a month or so previous to this incident, you got drunk and got sick on his carpeting and didn't take responsibility for that. So that's what happens when you get drunk. That's your defense.
That's basically correct, yes.
All right. Let's get to my favorite part of this. Let's get to the drinking part. What date did this incident allegedly happen, Mr. Sherman?
March 25th, 2005.
What time?
About 1 o'clock in the morning.
What day of the week was the 25th of March?
I believe it was a Saturday.
So nobody had school or work. Do you
No.
work or go to school?
I go to college, and I also
Where?
work Longview Community College.
Okay. Where did you start your drinking, Mr. Sherman, on Saturday night?
Went to a party, I believe it was a high school party in a rural area. I didn't know the person's house. I was taken there with my witness, Sean.
How many people were there?
I'd say about 50, 55.
Oh, good. I love this part. There were 50 or 55 high school kids?
Yeah, give or take.
A lot of drinking?
A lot of drinking.
Was it a nice house?
Not really.
Not when they got finished with it. The parents home?
No.
You know, I think when you have teenage children, you should just make a pact. You don't go away.
That's right.
You just don't go away.
Take them with you or lock them up.
Right. They should have sort of a kennel for them. So that the parents can go away. So these 50 teenagers are drinking in a house. Some other guys, you know, older college men like you show up, more responsible, and you're drinking. Now, is everybody bringing their own booze, or was it... What did you bring?
I didn't bring anything. I wasn't drinking, Your Honor.
Not at all?
No.
Who was driving?
I was.
What were you drinking? Is not an answer.
I was
But
drinking.
standing up is good.
I was drinking Miller Lite.
How many did you bring?
12-pack.
12, just for you?
Yeah.
And the two of you went together?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know the people whose party it was?
I just got calls from friends and...
Sort of out of the loop. You know, teenage kids have passed me by a long time ago. When you get the call, what does the call usually say?
There's a party, and come over, and blah, 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 and then you get directions, and just go.
Now you can sit down, Sean, until I need you again. Okay, so what happened at the party, Mr. Sherman?
Well, I went to the party, started talking with some friends, gazed over and saw Mr. Schiller here. He was with his best friends, and they were making faces at me, laughing and towards my direction, and I just got real embarrassed and really just distraught about the whole thing. And then they started making puking motions at me.
Had you gotten sick on Mr. Schiller's carpet the month
Yes.
before?
Yeah, I did.
And did you make arrangements to have the carpet cleaned up?
He refused my help. He said, no, I've had enough with you. He just told me to get out of his house.
Okay. Did he subsequently call you and ask you to pay to have the carpet cleaned?
Not till a week later.
A week later. I said subsequently. Subsequently can be a week.
Okay.
So he called you a week later, and what did you say to him?
I said, no, I'm not going to pay for that.
Okay. Let's cut to the party's over, and you got to the party at what time?
9:30ish?
9:30, and you left about 12:30, quarter of 1?
Yeah.
Good. And all that time you didn't have a beer?
No,
Nothing?
nothing.
Almost doesn't pay to go to the party.
Oh, you have a good time there. Socialize. I don't think you have to drink to have a good time.
Any drug? Yeah, well.
No, no drugs.
No drugs?
No drugs, Your Honor.
Any drugs?
No,
Just drinking.
just drinking.
How much did he drink?
About case.
Okay, so now it's 12:30, quarter of 1. And you leave?
Yeah, I decided to leave. I was
So,
tired of it.
Now, pick it up from there, Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Schiller and his friends were extremely drunk. I walked out to my car, and they ran in front of me and started pushing my car into a ditch. At that point, I got in the car, told Sean to get in the car, and started the ignition and headed out. They continued to follow me in their Chevy Blazer. Started yelling out the window and flashing their lights, honking their horn, tapping me on the
You
road.
mean acting stupid?
Yeah,
Okay,
acting
so they're
stupid.
acting stupid. What's next?
After that, I got to my house, stepped up on the front porch. They rolled up right behind me, honking the horn, telling me that they want to kick my... And I told them to leave, and they revved their engine and slammed into the back of my car, Your Honor, and then drove off. At that point, I was in shock and called the police. I have the police report right
Can
here.
I see it, please?
Yes.
Have a photograph of the damage?
Yes. I also have an estimate.
I'd like to see that, too. Now I'll hear you, sir.
About a month before this incident occurred.
I know months before you got sick and he ruined your carpet.
Ruined the carpet, damaged.
You wanted him to pay for it?
Well, not only that, though, he tried to fight me in my own house.
He got drunk.
He got drunk.
He has a drinking problem.
He cost me, yeah. Well, he blacked out and I let him pass out on the ground.
Listen to me, Mr. Schiller. He has a drinking problem.
He's an alcoholic.
I don't have a drinking problem. He has a drinking problem.
He has a...
Mr. Sherman, I want you to trust me on this one. I have a nose. You shouldn't drink. Keep going.
Well, we were outside. He basically invited us over to try to fight him. He wanted to fight.
How did he do that?
What, screaming down the road. Sean actually was yelling out the window, come over and fight us.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so that's... Listen, Mr. Sherman. See, that's what happens when you have a drinking problem. You can't control yourself. Mr. Sherman, do you understand?
Yes.
Understand how quiet he was when you were testifying? Didn't interfere. When you have a drinking problem, even if you haven't been drinking, you lose control of the ability to have control of yourself. Like right now, Mr. Sherman, if I can tell that you, as a 19-year-old kid, drinks too much, by the time you're 30, it's going to be over.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I just wanted to get this settled, maybe talk out with him, but...
And you thought, Mr. Schiller, the appropriate time to talk to Mr. Sherman was when he had a case of beer.
Well, that's the only time to talk to him.
Mr. Schiller, don't play with me, sir.
And later today...
She told me that whenever her son, Kenneth, was moving up to Kansas City and that his father had a lot of money and they were going to get full custody and make me out to be an unfit mother.
I never said that. Just a second.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Justin Sherman says acquaintance Jothan Schiller rammed his car in a drunken rage. Jothan claims it's Justin who is the troublemaker.
All right, so now you are at Mr. Sherman's house because this idiot over here challenged you to a duel.
Yes.
And you were sufficiently sophisticated, in control of yourself to say, I'm not going to get started with this. I'm going to go home. Whoops. No, I don't think so. I think I'm going to go over and fight them. Right? Now, you go over there, you honk your horn, and they don't come?
No, they ran inside as soon as we got there.
Right, and you honk your horn.
Yes, I honked.
And they didn't want to come out to fight you?
No, they did not want to. When they had offered first. I mean, I didn't want to fight him. I just wanted to get this settled, maybe talk out with him, but...
And you thought, Mr. Schiller, the appropriate time to talk to Mr. Sherman was when he had a case of beer?
Yes. That's the only time to talk to him.
No. You thought that the appropriate time to talk to him when he would be in
whenever
control
you see
of
him,
his senses.
he's usually been drinking.
Mr. Schiller, don't play with me, sir.
Well,
all right. And it's your statement that after you honked your horn and they refused to come out, you drove away and you did not back into the car.
I was parked in the driveway, so it might have appeared that I was close, but maybe his prior damage.
So that's your statement. Very good. What year is your car, sir?
A 91 Buick LeSabre.
Okay.
It holds sentimental value, Your Honor.
What?
It was my great-grandfather's. That's why I went fixed. It holds sentimental value.
Well, I don't get sentimental over a car, sir. You know, maybe a vintage Rolls Royce. But I got to tell you something. You should have it fixed. You're not going to have it fixed for $2,000. You find a ding doctor who can fix it maybe for $500. But I'm going to tell you both. If you continue to drink and act stupid, that's what happens. You ruin carpet. He hits your car. You're just lucky you didn't kill somebody else that evening because you had all been drinking. I have very little sympathy for either one of you. Anyway, you're suing him for $2,000 because that's the estimate that you had. The whole car's not worth $2,000. Get somebody to fix it for $500. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I'm just completely outraged. I didn't cause any damage to his car. He's just, like she said, a drinking problem. So that's just the person that we're dealing with.
I don't have a drinking problem. I never did, never will. He's the one with the drinking problem. That's why he hit me.
Alcoholism runs in his family, so he just doesn't have, he also doesn't have regard for society.
I never wanted to start a fight. I just wanted him to go away. That's what I was saying.
He drives home after parties and gets in car accidents. It's just kind of ridiculous.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Davis versus Seco. Step forward, please.
Lola Davis is suing her granddaughter's mother, 21-year-old Michelle Seco, for attorney fees as a result of a restraining order. Michelle says she was fearful of Lola kidnapping her daughter.
Miss Davis, Miss Seco is the mother of your granddaughter.
Yes.
She was not married to your son, but they do have a child together, and that child is how old?
3.5.
Where is your son now?
He's incarcerated.
For what?
Violation of a probation.
For what?
DWI.
So he has a drinking problem.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that Ms. Seco filed a false application for a protective order against you and your husband.
Yes.
As a result of which you had to retain an attorney and you want her to pay for your legal fees.
Yes, I do.
Ms. Seco says that the allegations in her application were true, and it's unfortunate because you used to see your granddaughter regularly but don't anymore.
Right.
So, Ms. Seco, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
When did you file this application for a protective order?
On January 11th.
Under what circumstances?
Because of the harassing phone call that I had got from him saying that Christina's father was going to kidnap her and take her up to Kansas City because he was going to work on the railroad with his dad. And I asked him about it, and he didn't know anything about it, but he was moving up there, and he was thinking of giving me sole custody to get his life straight. And I told them that, you know, they called the cops on me, and I told them that they were no longer going to see her because, you know, if Kenneth's not there...
What do you mean they called the cops on you? For what?
For checking on the well-being. They called the cops several times on me and family services, and I have the reports here if you'd like to see them.
I would. And I'd also like to see the application that you filed for the protective order.
Okay.
So you filed a petition in which you allege as follows.
Mm-hmm.
She is constantly harassing me if I don't let her see her granddaughter. She makes me out to be an unfit mother. She's several times called Division of Family and Children's Services and called the cops on me.
Yes.
When I would go to pick up my child, we would get into arguments and she would yell at me and threaten to take my child away. She's constantly harassing me about my 3-year-old daughter, which I fear she might kidnap and flee the state.
Yes.
Well, what did she say about kidnapping your child, or are these fears that you have that were born out of the fact that she said if you don't let me see her, something will happen?
She told me that whenever her son Kenneth was moving up to Kansas City and that his father had a lot of money and they were going to get full custody and make me out to be an unfit mother.
I never said that.
Just a second. So?
And I asked Kenneth about it, and he said that was not true. He was going to move and stay up there and get his life on track because he had his previous history, and he was going to give me sole custody.
Lola Davis says the mother of her granddaughter, Michelle Seco, took out a false restraining order against her.
How many grandchildren do you have, Ms. Davis?
I have 13 total.
Unfortunately, you can't sue the person who granted her a temporary restraining order. You were granted a temporary restraining order, then you had a trial?
Yes.
And at the trial, the case was dismissed?
Yes.
Well, should never have been a temporary restraining order based upon these allegations. There is not one allegation here that is sufficient, in my judgment, for a court to have granted her a temporary restraining order.
Judge Judy?
Yes.
When she filed the ex parte orders on us, we had retained the attorneys to appear for us on our behalf, and by the time we did get to court, the whole case was dismissed. And I have a copy of the court transcript.
I don't have to read the transcript. I've been in the business a long time. When you file for a protective order, one of the things that you're stating is, based upon a fact, you are in fear for your safety or the safety of your child. Fact. She doesn't state any facts here. What she says is, I fear she might hire a hitman to kill me. Well, maybe she's crazy. Maybe that's why she has a fear. Maybe she's nuts. But I fear that she might kidnap my daughter. Well, that's not what she said, according to you, Ms. Seco. According to you, what she said is, my husband is moving, and according to you, she said, and they have a lot of money. Parents have a lot of money, the relatives have a lot of money, and they're going to sue and try to get sole custody of the child. Whether that's true or not, that's legal. So there is nothing in your petition that should have inspired a judge to grant a temporary restraining order. So you're suing the wrong person, because she's not a lawyer. She didn't pull the wool over anybody's eyes. She made statements like she was, free thinking, and somebody who wasn't using their noodle granted her a protective order, temporary, and by the time it got down to push comes to shove, they thought better of it and either dismissed it,
Yes.
or she didn't show up and they dismissed it because she wasn't there, or was there a hearing?
Yes, there was.
There's a hearing and the court said there's no basis for a restraining order.
Correct.
Right. I think that there is probably a larger picture here, and that larger picture is it's unfortunate that you're not seeing your granddaughter anymore.
I'm trying to file for grandparents' rights, Your Honor.
That's kind of a hard thing to do because the law is very strict with regard to that now. Is there any way that you can envision having Mr. and Mrs. Davis see their granddaughter?
I mean, I didn't have a problem with it at all in the beginning until they started calling family services and cops coming out for false accusations.
Okay, now let me ask you this question. You live at home with your parents?
Yes.
Do your parents have any objection to this Davises coming over to see your granddaughter for an hour or two in their house?
I mean, if it's at my house, I don't think they would really have a problem with it.
Well, Ms. Davis, if those are the circumstances now, at least for now, that Ms. Seiko is prepared to allow you to come and spend some time with your granddaughter, I would do that.
I am going to do that, Your Honor, because I love her very deeply.
They have 13 grandchildren.
Right.
You have one child. Your daughter only has 4 grandparents.
Yep.
Your son has a problem.
Yes, he does.
So, better be nice to her.
Yes.
Why don't you see while you're here if you can arrange for a time, an hour maybe on a Sunday? That would be reasonable.
Yes.
And it would certainly show me a level of maturity on your part.
Exactly, and I've always told her that she is the grandmother and nothing is ever going to change that, whether me and her son aren't talking or not, and I've always told her, even before I had my child.
So, why don't you see if this Sunday you can make some time? You live close enough, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
22-year-old customer service rep Kimberly Johnson and her ex-boyfriend, Arthur Spain Jr., are suing Arthur's ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old restaurant manager Tequila Bailey, for vandalism to a Pontiac Grand Am and for the return of belongings. Tequila is countersuing for unpaid rent and harassment.
This is case number 7 on the calendar in the matter of Johnson Spain Jr. versus Bailey. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Ms. Johnson, you and Mr. Spain live together and have 2 children together.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are no longer a couple.
Yes, ma'am. No,
despite the fact that you both appear today as plaintiffs. My understanding of this rather complex case is that when you and Mr. Spain separated, Mr. Spain began a relationship with the defendant, Miss Bailey. And he, in fact, moved in with her. According to you, you tried to maintain a civil relationship with both of them, with Mr. Spain for the benefit of the children, and for Miss Bailey just because. But Miss Bailey was not happy with you for some reason, and it is your claim that she vandalized your car. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are suing her as a co-plaintiff with Mr. Spain, who says that Miss Bailey kept some of his personal property when he moved out of the house because they are no longer together. Miss Bailey says that she did nothing to your car. It's actually you who harassed her, you and Mr. Spain. That it was Mr. Spain who damaged your car.
Correct.
And that you slashed her tires, you caused her to lose her job, and she wants from you, Mr. Spain, rent for the time that you were living with her. She has a counterclaim. All right, let's try to put some dates to these facts. Mr. Spain, when did you and Miss Johnson live together?
About 2000 and...
Maybe I'll ask Miss Johnson.
We moved in, was about July 2003.
And how old are your children?
My son is 2 and my daughter is 4.
And when did Mr. Spain move out?
He moved out November 23rd, 2004.
Why?
Because of our differences. It wasn't working out.
When did you move in with Miss Bailey?
About the 26th.
Of what?
Of November.
You knew her from before?
Yes.
From where?
School.
How come you moved in with Miss Bailey?
Because she had asked me to move in with her.
I mean, did you rent a room from her, or were you living together as a couple?
Living together as a couple.
So that while you were with Miss Johnson, you were also with Miss Bailey?
No. She
I mean, it's a short 3 days, sir, you were in somebody else's house.
She had called me on the phone talking to her.
Yeah. When I came home from work, he was on the phone talking to her.
On the 23rd of November?
Yes, ma'am.
So then he moved out and he was living with Miss Bailey. How long did you stay with Miss Bailey, Mr. Spain?
About a month and a half.
Is that right, Miss Bailey?
He moved in November 23rd. He was arrested January the 4th, so that's the last time he lived with me when he got out of jail.
What were you arrested for?
Home invasion.
Burglary?
Nah.
What?
Well, no,
he kicked in the door.
Kicked in her door.
Yeah, he kicked in my door.
You kicked in her door?
Where his kids lay their heads at night.
Shh. What'd you kick in her door for?
Just jealous, and I was really upset what was going on when I was living with her.
Well, so you were annoyed with Miss Bailey, so you kicked in Miss Johnson's door?
Yes.
It's very logical. Getting too old for this job. All right, Miss Johnson, tell me about the vandalism of your car. When did that happen?
December the 16th.
And you were still living with Miss Bailey, is that right, Mr. Spain?
Yes.
In between the time that they were together, it's been harassing phone calls. I mean, he would call, he would get me upset, he would get me upset, just arguing over our relationship, whatever. Then she would call, and she would play on the phone, repeatedly call, left threatening messages on my voicemail, and I just got, I mean, of course I've defended myself in the argument too, but I guess she got real upset to the point where she wants to come over to my house, and she'd scratch the car.
Well, I want to know, were you home when she scratched the car?
Yeah, I was home, but I was asleep. It happened overnight.
So you didn't see her scratch the car?
No, I didn't see her scratch the car, but I do have a witness with me.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to hear that witness. Tell me your name, please.
Monica Dykes.
Dykes, did you see on December 16th somebody vandalized Miss Johnson's car?
No, I wasn't with her at the time, but I was at her house. I was spending the night at her house, and she was supposed to go get me something to eat. And
Who was?
Mrs. Bailey. She didn't come back with my food, and I asked her why, and she said because she came in the house with a box cutter, and she said that she had scratched Miss Johnson's car.
Well, how do you know Miss Bailey?
They were going together. This is my brother.
When she came home, she just took out the box cutter and told you? What did she do?
No, she had the box cutter in her hand.
Walked in the door with the box cutter in her hand?
It was in her pocket, and she took it out.
Well, tell me about that. I'm curious about that whole moment when she walked into the house with the box cutter in her pocket.
When she walked into the house, I was like, well, what happened to the Burger King that you're supposed to bring back? She said, well, Burger King was closed, and I just came back from around Mrs. Johnson's house, and I scratched the car up, and I hope she come around here with some... She's lying.
So what did you say to her?
Nothing. I didn't say anything after that.
She's lying. You didn't say, why would you do that?
Well, I asked her why. She said, because she's just been harassing me and all this other stuff.
Did she tell you what she'd been doing to harass you?
She said that Miss Johnson has been calling her house numerous of times.
So they were speed dialing each other.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Miss Bailey, now I'll hear from you.
Thank you so much. First of all, he moved in my home November 23rd of 2004. He moved out because he went to jail for kicking in her door. I was pregnant at the time with his kid. So when he got out of jail, I no longer want him in my home anymore. So while the process he's been in jail, me and Christina Stovall right here took all of his belongings.
I'm not at his claim yet, Miss Bailey.
Oh, okay. Well, where are we at?
I'm keying her car.
Oh, keying her car, and he keyed her car, and the night that he got arrested, he came over to my house bragging about keying her car in as well as kicking her door in. Why would I key her car? He kicked the key. I mean, he keyed the car in and kicked the door, and he know he did. I was there. If he's gonna kick her door in, he's gonna key her car.
She's
lying. Whatever, you lying.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If somebody moves in with you in December and you get pregnant between December and January 4th, you're not too swift.
And later today.
Where is the car now?
The car is in front of my house now.
You have not sought to have the car returned to you, have you?
No.
Smart lady.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kimberly Johnson and Arthur Spain Jr. claim Arthur's ex-girlfriend, Tequila Bailey, keyed Kimberly's Pontiac Grand Am. Arthur also says Tequila won't return his belongings.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see. Step up. Tell me your name.
Christina Stovall.
You said that you were present when Mr. Spain acknowledged that he vandalized Miss Johnson's car?
Yes.
When was that?
January 4th.
Tell me about what he said.
Me and Tequila and her two sisters were in the living room. He came in through the door. He was sweating, walking around. You could tell he had did something. This is what he said. He said, I keyed in her car, I kicked in her door, and the police is coming. So Tequila said, let's go upstairs and talk about it.
Yeah, but the police report...
He did it at
He did it what?
He did it at 2 different times. When he keyed in her car a couple days before he kicked in her door. But he came in bragging about both of it.
Yeah.
No. No.
Yeah. He keyed her car. I don't know what he keyed the car in, but the night he got arrested...
Listen to me very carefully. Where did you spend Christmas?
At my house.
Did you see Miss Bailey?
I see her every day, all the time.
And what about Mr. Spain? Did you see him?
Yeah, I see him.
Shut up!
I used to go see with him. I
So
used to go to
listen
the candy
me.
store. He
Listen
knows
to
who
me.
I am.
Okay. So you know them both, and you saw them between December 16th and January 4th. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what you're telling me is on January 4th, he acknowledged keying her car.
Because he came in all nervous.
All right. But the police report is from December 16th. Why in the world would he come in all nervous and hyper and confess to something that he had done on December 16th?
He already confessed to me a long time ago about it.
Because he was scared.
He was bragging.
Sit down. Okay. Good. Very good. No, I believe that he kicked in her door, but on December 16th, I believe her when she says that you went out to get her some Burger King and you came back and you keyed her car.
Nah.
Yeah, no. Okay, now, what stuff do you claim that you left at Miss Bailey's home?
Radio, TVs, CDs, DVDs, weights.
Where's all his stuff?
We took 2 trips to her mom and his mom's house, and he knows and she knows. As a matter of fact, I had Matt come get the guns that was in my house. They don't have any permits for.
What kind of guns?
Sawed-offs.
BB guns.
Sawed-offs.
Who is this gentleman?
That's my friend.
What does he have to do with this case?
His weights are in her house.
He helped haul
her
belongings
stuff
over
over
to
there.
her house.
And we hauled it right back. And I don't know what your father did with him, but we hauled it right back.
A few baskets over to his house. This is when he was locked up.
TV returned?
No. And
Everything
she
was
brought
returned.
me my shoes, and she brought my shoes, a box full of my shoes, and my mocha control was in the box.
What kind of television did he bring to your house? Look at me directly. Don't look at the floor.
I'm looking at you. I don't know exactly what kind of television was. It was little black box television.
Where is it?
At his mom's house. Me and her took 2 trips to Hallville, Indiana, to give him their stuff. But he got locked up from my house. I got a letter in my mail from my landlord saying that if they find him or anything of his in my house again, I will be in court for eviction because he was not on my lease. So I quickly took all his stuff to his mother's house. All his stuff. He knows it.
She is lying.
Now, Miss Bailey, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me about your counterclaim. You think that Mr. Spain should pay you for rent?
Yes.
What kind of contract did you have with him for your
We didn't
rent?
have anything written down, signed, because when you're supposed to be having a relationship, you don't do that. But we have verbal. You're going to pay half on everything. You're not going to stay in my house and lay up and sleep, and not pay nothing on anything.
Miss Bailey.
Yes, ma'am.
We live in a civilized society. So I want you to leave your gutter language outside.
I can do that. That's fine.
And you're going to wait until I'm finished speaking before you open your mouth.
Okay.
You're going to leave your gutter language outside, and you're going to remember where you are. We understand each other?
We do.
Perfect.
Kimberly Johnson and Arthur Spain Jr. claim Arthur's ex-girlfriend, Tequila Bailey, keyed Kimberly's Pontiac Grand Am. Arthur also says Tequila won't return his belongings.
I believe that after he moved out, you wanted money, but I don't believe you had an agreement with him to pay you half of everything.
Somebody can't stay with me.
Listen to me. Next.
First of all, my tires were slashed. I couldn't get to work. I had to call in to get my car fixed. Second of all, they're playing my phone. He's coming to my job, my new job and my old job, harassing on me on my job.
Well, just a second. What did he say when he came to your job?
I broke up with him. He wants to be with me. He loves me. He wants to be a family. Let's make it work. I don't want to be with you. I want to be a family. Go raise your 2 kids with Kimberly.
Just a second. I don't understand you.
What do you mean?
You're talking too fast.
I talk fast all the time. I know. He wants to be with me.
So he came to you telling you that he wanted to be with you, he wanted to be a family.
Making a scene. Yeah, making a scene at work. He wanted to be with me.
And that's why you got fired.
That, and I had to call in because I was pregnant with his child, and he was in jail. I couldn't work. I was sick.
I mean, you think that he's responsible for you?
Yeah, he helped me make the baby. Yeah.
What?
He helped make the baby. Yeah, he's responsible.
That's not a lawsuit.
It is mine.
It's not one that I'm going to hear.
That's fine, Miss Judge Judy.
It's not one that I'm going to hear. How many children do you have?
I have 1.
Okay. So you know how babies are made, right?
I do.
If you don't want to have the baby, then what you do is you take precautions so that you don't have a baby. If somebody moves in with you in December and you get pregnant between December and January 4th, you're not too swift.
Right.
Can I see pictures of your car?
Yes. Yeah, Your Honor, she scratched the whole driver's side, and she also...
Can I just see the pictures of the car?
My boyfriend.
Okay. Did you have these scratches taken care of?
No, ma'am.
Do you have an estimate on how much it's going to cost?
Yes,
to have
ma'am, I do.
Scratches taken care of? That's a reasonable estimate. Listen, there is no question in my mind that the two of you women behaved badly towards each other, right?
Right.
I think Mr. Spain behaved badly, too. Listen, Miss Bailey, don't get in between people. It's always a very bad idea. If someone has a fight with his wife, woman, girlfriend, whatever it is, and if you take him in the day that he had a fight, and then if you make a baby with him, that makes you a smart woman who's not acting too smart, or a stupid woman who's not acting too smart. I don't know which one you are.
I was stupid.
But whoever you are, you owe us $600 to have a car painted. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. Your counterclaim's dismissed. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I ain't even mad, though. That's the whole thing. I ain't even mad. I'm cool. I'm cool.
She's a liar. She's crazy. She needs some mental health.
I don't need anything from any one of them. And I'm still strong, sitting on my own 2 feet.
That's the devil right there.
Thing is, I got fists. Come on, bring it, because I'm ready. Straight up, I'm ready.
The girl's crazy, and you seen it in there. She crazy.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Ford versus Tarrant. Step forward, please.
Barber Glenn Ford is suing his former lover, office technician Elizabeth Tarrant, for the balance on a 1988 Toyota Celica he bought for her daughter.
Mr. Ford, it is your claim that Miss Tarrant, with whom you were briefly involved, owes you money for a car that you purchased for her daughter and for impound fees later when the car was impounded because her daughter didn't have a driver's license. Ms. Tarrant indicates that both of those things were gifts and you did not seek any money until after she decided she no longer wanted to be involved in a committed relationship with you. Is that what this case is about?
Yes.
Fine. Where is the car now?
The car is in front of my house now.
You have not sought to have the car returned to you, have you?
No.
Smart lady. Mr. Ford, can you explain to me why this is a relatively new purchase? According to your complaint, the car was purchased for her daughter sometime in February, correct?
In March.
So it was driven by her for a relatively short period of time. Why don't you just sell it?
The reason why I don't want to sell it, because I'm really not in this business of selling car. I had purchased the car for Elizabeth because she needed a car for her daughter. And it was an understanding, a mutual understanding between us two, and a contract that we had, which she didn't sign.
Well, then I'm not interested in it, sir. My question to you is a very practical one. This is a relationship that clearly was not going anywhere. The only nexus tie that you had to each other was this car. You got your the car back, and I understand that you're not in the car business, but I don't know what your losses are.
Well, the car was impound, and she had agreed to pay me for the impound fees. I had to get the car out of impound, and the only way that I was able to get the car out of impound was that her daughter had to have a driver's license, so they could release the car to me from out of impound. I took her daughter to get a driver's license, and she had a driver's license, and I went to pick up the car from the impound. I incurred losses there. Now, she agreed that she would pay for these losses that had occurred.
You mean for the impound fees?
For the impound, yes.
That's not unreasonable. What do you do for a living, Mr. Ford?
I'm a barber.
Is it your own business?
Yes, it is.
Then you're a businessman, Mr. Ford, and you appear to be an intelligent person. Right? You may not know a lot about cars. I don't know a lot about cars either. But I know that if I had a piece of property in my possession, in this case a car, and I had the title to it, which you do at this point because she signed it over to you, before I would bring her to court, I would put an ad in the paper, a sign in the window, and I would say I want to sell this car and see what I get for it. And then you won't be out any money unless you just wanted to bust her chops. So, Mr. Ford, before you come to court, go sell the car and see if you come up with a shortfall on the money you laid out. Do we understand each other?
Yes, Your Honor.
Perfect. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
27-year-old Sean Ari is suing his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old Billy Peterson, for keying the side of his car. Billy is denying the charge.
Now, this is case number 115 on the calendar in the matter of Ari versus Peterson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
All right, Mr. Ari, the defendant is the now ex-boyfriend of your now current girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that when he found out that you were involved with his then girlfriend, he vandalized your car. Mr. Peterson says, I didn't do it.
Right.
When did he vandalize your car, sir?
March 23rd, but it happened, I didn't find out. It happened until the 24th, the following morning.
Tell me the circumstances surrounding him vandalizing your car.
That day we got home from work.
Who's we?
Me and Jennifer. I went to her apartment. It was probably around 11 to 12 that night. When he came, I was inside with her sister watching television. I heard them arguing. The door comes swinging open. I see her flying to the side, and he comes rushing in. And at the time, I'm lying on the ground watching television. They just moved into the apartment, and he runs up with his hands balled in the fist, facial mannerism, just like, very aggressive. And I can tell he wanted, to fight or something like that. So I stood up.
Had you ever seen him before?
No, I never saw him
Never
in my
met.
life.
So you
Never
stood
met
up.
the guy. So, yeah.
And when you stood up, what happened?
Oh, when I stood up, his whole mannerism changed real
Right.
quick. I was like, what's the problem, And at this time, I started taking off my watch, and he looks at me, he's like, oh, I just want to ask you a question. So we walk outside.
What were you taking your watch off for?
Well, I want to know what time it was, man, So,
Why were you taking your watch off?
well, it was a nice watch, and I just didn't want to mess it up. So,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, he follows me outside, and he asked me, what's the deal between you and Jennifer? And I asked him, I was like, well, do you know who I am? He was like, no. And I was like, well, I don't know you either, and is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he kind of like paused and hesitated. I was like, is Jennifer your girlfriend? And he was like, well, I was like, well, dude, I don't know you don't know me. You have to ask her. And I left him out there, and I went back inside.
Had Jennifer told you she had a boyfriend?
She told me that she broke up with him around December, January. That, like, he was assaultive, would hit her and stuff like that. She just got tired of it.
So she told you at the time she invited you over that she didn't have a boyfriend?
Yes. We'd known each other for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I ever been asked to come over to her house. It had been like a month before I even came over there. I started working where we work at in January.
Now tell me about the vandalism to your car.
Okay, well, after I left him outside, he did come back in again. He came back in and told her that he wanted to grab his stuff. And she was like, well, you don't have anything here, but whatever, take whatever you want and leave. After he went upstairs, taking whatever, he was up there for a while. When she went back up there, they started arguing again. I got tired of it, and I got up and I was like, look, is there a problem? And that's when he left. He finally left. And then Jennifer and her sister watched him through the window.
Don't tell me what they saw.
I'm sorry, man.
Jennifer, what did you see?
After he went outside, my sister and I were looking out the window. At that point, I seen him walk around the car, and it looked like he was just dragging his finger along the sides of the car. And he just walked around the whole vehicle, and then I seen him just walk away and get in his truck and leave.
Did you tell Mr. Ari what you had seen?
No, I didn't tell Sean at that time because I didn't want them to fight any longer. And my little sister was there, and I didn't want her exposed to this. And I knew how upset Sean was about the whole thing, and how much more he would be upset if he knew that Billy was anywhere around his car.
Well, when did he find the damage to his car?
That following morning, ma'am.
Did you stay over that night?
Yeah, she asked me to, because she said she was scared. So
And when you went out in the morning, what did you find?
a nice little decoration around my car.
Can I see it, please? You have
Yes, ma'am.
pictures. Let me see. Did you speak to him about it?
Right after we called the cops and Sean and the cops left, I received a phone call from a private number on my cell phone, and it was Billy, and he was asking me, how's your friend's car? How's your friend's car? And saying, like, if I was to say anything, it's going to happen to my car, and that I was his and I would always be his and no one else's. I hung up, and he continued to call me back on private numbers, and I went ahead and called the cops.
Okay, I'll hear you.
On March 23rd, I went over to see Jennifer Gifford, who is now my ex-girlfriend. She was my girlfriend at the time. We talked about our relationship for the simple fact that I had just helped her move into this home. It was actually supposed to be me moving into the home, but it didn't turn out that way as her sister moved in. At that time, we were just discussing our relationship. She asked me what was going on. I asked her if everything was okay between us. Basically, I was expressing, like my love for her. She seemed pretty apprehensive to really speak to me at that point. She seemed just not her usual self. I dated her for about three and a half years.
You knew before that things were not right, Mr. Peterson, because you were supposed to, according to you, move into this apartment together. She had been in this apartment for a month, and you weren't living with her. So you knew something wasn't right a month ago.
Well, I have a child.
How old is the child?
3 years old, and that was a complication at hand.
So you knew that things weren't right between the two of you for at least a month.
She actually lived with me in my home, and things were good. We didn't have any complications.
When she moved into her own place and you weren't living with her, you knew that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you go over there for at such a late hour?
She received a diamond ring from me. March, when I went over the 23rd.
When did she receive a diamond ring from you?
Christmas.
Okay.
Okay. When I went over there the 23rd of March, discussing issues in regards to our relationship, this gentleman here, the plaintiff, exited the doorway asking me who I was at that time. Now we got myself, this gentleman, and her outside in a very awkward situation. I asked her who was he. She didn't respond. He asked me who I was, and I told him.
What did you tell him?
I said, I'm her boyfriend. Who are you?
Why you went over there so late, sir?
Well, because usually I stay the night there, and I had stayed the night there like several days prior to this circumstance.
Did you take the engagement ring?
Yes.
Get to what happened when you left.
She actually, during the time that we spoke outside, all three of us, me and him didn't come to any terms of agreement whatsoever. We didn't even discuss anything. I asked her if this was the way it's going to be, if I can get my belongings. She allowed me to enter the house. I went and got all my belongings. I had shoes, pajamas, had the ring. I walked downstairs holding all my belongings. And this gentleman was waiting there by the door. And when I walked by him with my stuff, he basically, quote unquote, said, next time we meet, he ain't going to be nice. Closing the door at that time, slamming it, saying, it was an indicator like, you're not welcome here. So at that point, I got in my vehicle. I left home. I heard from Mrs. Gifford the next morning. She contacted me. She said, Sean is accusing you of messing up his car. I said, I didn't do anything like that, okay? And you should know me better than that. We were together 3 years. I never did anything like that. So basically, that's how it went. And
who do you think keyed his car?
I don't know. It's a new neighborhood, so I really wasn't sure. Like I said, I'd made sure that, when I moved her in.
Who are you?
Excuse me, I'm Billy's mother. My name is Anna Peterson.
You know anything about this case?
I know some. Jennifer Gifford called me that next day, and she said, I think Billy keyed my friend's car. And I says, why didn't you call us and say, Billy's over here, there's a problem? She had no response. I replied, you know us for 3 years. You know we don't condone any kind of negative behavior. She proceeded to cry and say, it wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I said, no, Jennifer, you've been in my family for 3.5 years. I've come to love you, and it isn't supposed to be like this. Okay? So prior to that, the day before, she had come to my home with my grandchild. Now, if they're not a couple, what is she doing with my grandbaby? She's come to my home the day prior to this happening, this incident. She has my granddaughter. I sit down and we have a heart-to-heart talk. I said, Jennifer, how are things with you and Billy? She says, we are working things out. I said, are you dating a certain individual? Not this gentleman. She replied, no. So at that point, I didn't feel there was a problem at all because they had still been seeing each other. She had been with us in March.
Jennifer, I have a question for you, dear.
Yes.
You didn't tell this gentleman, uncross your hands. You didn't tell Mr. Ari
Yes, ma'am.
about what happened that night. He stayed all night.
Correct.
Correct? Now, private number called.
Yes.
And you say you spoke to Mr. Peterson.
Correct.
And then he kept calling.
Mm-hmm.
And you kept taking the phone calls, or did you let it go to voicemail?
I took a couple and then I stopped. I called the cops. They came and took a report and went and spoke to him and told him he needed to stop calling me and that if he came back to my house, he would be arrested for trespassing.
Did the police tell you to stop calling her?
Yes. They contacted me through the telephone, and they said that Mrs. Gifford has stated that you and her are not going to be in a relationship anymore, so please do not have any more contact or show up at her home. I said, yes, sir. That's not a problem.
What would make her call the police, Mr. Peterson?
I believe it lays down a foundation in which there's no pertinent evidence in which can be held against me in this predicament. I mean, given the circumstance at hand, I've been accused of vandalizing a car, and she asked me the next morning if I was okay.
Listen to me, Mr. Peterson. There are only two people that could have vandalized that car. One was you, and one was Jennifer. Now, if Jennifer had a sick pathology, she could have said, listen, when he's sleeping, I'm going to go out, I'm going to vandalize his car, I'm going to key his car, and then I'm going to be able to get rid of Mr. Peterson once and for all because he's going to stay away from me. She would have to be pretty nutty to do that. But those are the only two people, in my judgment, who could do it. Her sister wasn't going to do it. Her sister doesn't care whether she's seeing you, whether she's seeing him. She doesn't care. I just don't see her doing that, Mr. Peterson.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
I told them they could go down there and play with the foosball table, but they were to not touch anything that was marks and to stay away from the motorcycle.
Any of you children touch the motorcycle?
No, ma'am.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sean Ari says his girlfriend's ex, Billy Peterson, vandalized his car by keying it. Billy admits he was angry, but claims he didn't do it.
You certainly had the opportunity to key his car. And after what you discovered that evening when you arrived at her house, there's no question you had the inclination to key his car. You weren't going to fight him because after he stood up, you figured you weren't going to get the best of this deal.
Probably not.
Probably not. So what's the next best thing to a young man's heart is his car. What kind of an estimate did you get to fix your car, sir?
The cheapest one was to cover up just the scratch without painting it, the whole car.
So, Mr. Peterson, in civil cases, courts have to decide, not beyond a reasonable doubt, that would be a criminal case as to whether you were guilty of vandalism, but whether there is more evidence than not, by a preponderance of the evidence, more evidence than not, as to whether or not I believe you keyed his car. Mr. Peterson, I believe you keyed his car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,200. That's all.
Thank you,
Parties are excused. You may step out.
When you date someone for a while, they may end up cheating on you. It's basically what happened to me, and they kind of got together and orchestrated the plan.
We didn't start dating until just recently, so, and that happened in March.
He was threatening me and making it a jokingly manner of how my friend's car was.
She got caught, and now she don't know what to do about it.
Where I'm from, we don't scratch guys' cars, so, me and him aren't from the same town.
I'm just glad it's done and over with, and we don't have to deal with him anymore.
Like I said, it just goes to show, be careful who you date.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Mason versus Fleck. Step forward.
21-year-old Mark Mason is suing his mother's friend, Michael Fleck, for damage to a motorcycle and snowboard. Mark says Michael's children are the culprits.
Is this your mother?
Yes, it is.
Just step up, please. How old are you, Mr. Mason?
I'm 21.
Where do you live?
I live at my dad's and my mom's house, kind of between the both of them.
When did this incident happen with your motorcycle and snowboard?
February of this winter.
And where were you living in February?
On the weekends, I was staying at my mom's house, and during the week at my dad's because it's closer to school.
Father have a house?
Yes, he does.
But you stored a motorcycle and a surfboard in the basement at your mother's house.
I was a motorcycle and a snowboard.
Snowboard.
Yep.
Now, Miss Mason, how do you know Mr. Fleck?
We dated a few years ago.
And he came to visit you in February?
Correct.
With his 3 children?
Yes.
What was the weather like the day he came to visit?
It was winter, so in Minnesota and Wisconsin, snowy and cold.
So the children were playing indoors?
Correct.
When did they ask you if they could go down to play in the basement?
I had shown them a tour of the home, and they saw Mark has a foosball table down there, and they had seen the foosball table and wanted to go down and play with the foosball table.
So what did you say?
I told them they could go down there and play with the foosball table, but they were to not touch anything that was Mark's and to stay away from the motorcycle.
And you told that to 3 little children?
Correct.
And then you were upstairs entertaining Mr. Fleck?
We had ordered pizza, so we were waiting for the pizza to get delivered.
Okay. This is your lawsuit, Mr. Mason.
Yep.
The lawsuit wants Mr. Fleck to pay for damage allegedly done by his 3 children when they were playing with a box downstairs in the basement, playing in a big old box. And they bumped up against either your snowboard or your bicycle and caused damage to your bicycle.
That's correct.
Right? He's not going to pay for that.
Whose responsibility would it be?
Your mother's.
Why is that?
You were storing items in your mother's house. She had the opportunity to say to Mr. Fleck's children, do not go down to the basement. They would not have gone down to the basement without her permission. If they hadn't been down there playing, then the property would not have been damaged. And your mother had total control over that.
Even though it was an accident on their behalf, it's not their responsibility?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, I would like to say that at first, Mr. Fleck agreed to pay for the damages upon getting an estimate, and he even listed me as a debt on claiming bankruptcy.
Did you declare bankruptcy, sir?
I'm in the process now, ma'am, yes.
How much did Mr. Mason tell you that the damage was to his property?
The first figure I received was $250.
When did you receive that figure?
Say 2 weeks after this incident occurred.
Did you tell him that you would pay the $250?
No, ma'am. I said I would talk to my children.
Then why did you list him as a creditor?
I was told to do so by my attorneys.
You mean any possible person that you might owe money to?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you originally tell Mr. Fleck, Mr. Mason, that the damage was $250?
Yeah, I called around to get
The
estimates.
answer is either yes or no.
Yes.
Then why are you suing him for $877.46?
Because once I went to the dealer and got the estimates, that's what they came back as. That was my estimate at first. Me, not the dealer.
Did you tell that to Mr. Fleck?
I did. That was just some online researching that I did.
I don't think he owes you anything. And he says he didn't agree to pay you. He said he just listed you in his bankruptcy because in the event that you got a judgment against him, he wanted to be covered. Is that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Any of you children touch the motorcycle?
No, ma'am.
Were you playing in a big cardboard box?
I was.
That's what happens when kids play.
So they're not responsible for their damages?
Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs, sir. Your mother gave them permission to go downstairs. And if what happened down there was an accident, it should have been covered by your homeowner's insurance if you had it. Did you have homeowner's insurance?
No, ma'am.
Should have. Or else your mother's going to fix it. She should not have let Mr. Fleck's children go downstairs if your property was downstairs and she knew it was valuable. You got it? Goodbye.
The parties are excused. You may step out.
Amy Evans is suing her ex-boyfriend, Timothy Beeler, for an unpaid loan to pay his rent and for the accrued interest on the loan. Timothy is countersuing for harassment and defamation of character.
Miss Evans, Mr. Beeler was a friend of yours, and you took out a loan for him, very high-interest loan, because he was in need of money. You want him to pay you back. The defendant says that you gave him money, He told you not to take out such a high-interest loan. You did it anyway. And he's got a counterclaim for some nonsense because you're angry at him for not paying back the loan, so he says you've been harassing him for the money and telling people that he's a deadbeat, right?
That's correct.
Well, you probably are. Truth is a perfect defense. Why did you take money from her?
I didn't take money from her, Your Honor. It was a...
Just a second. You did take money from her.
I did. She offered...
No, listen to me. You did take money from her. It is my judgment as to whether that is a loan or a gift. My question to you is, why did you take money from her?
We had been seeing each other, whatever was going on with her, in her relationship with her husband or whatever. We started talking again, and she had stayed over a couple nights. We were pretty close. We were getting along pretty good. I was telling her my situation about my roommate. He skipped out on me, left me kind of hanging. I was a little short on my rent and whatnot. She said she'd try and help me out. She came up with some money. Yeah, she handed it to me, and I took it. It was a gift. I didn't know that I was forced to pay back.
Just a second.
And everything was cool, and we started talking about our relationship and stuff and what we were going to do. Well,
tell me about that, sir.
What?
I'm confused because I read the papers, yours and hers. Tell me, when she stayed over at your house, did you stay in the same room?
Yes.
Did you stay in the same bed?
Yes.
Just a minute. I'm not paying Amy for anything. She gave me the money with the hopes of rekindling our romance, which has been over for years, according to you. Now, if it had been over for years, sir, why did you share a bed with her?
Why
Would you
did
stand up straight, please?
Why did I share a bed with her?
Yeah, you said your romance has been over for years.
We were hanging out. We were seeing each other.
Hanging out is not sharing a bed.
Well, kissing and other things that go in that matter are. So, yeah, we shared a bed.
But you, listen.
Yeah,
but
we did.
Then you, listen to me.
Well.
Listen to me. Then you lied to me here when you wrote in this answer, she gave me money in the hopes of rekindling our romance, which had been over. So that's a lie.
Because.
Just a minute. That's a lie then, based upon what you just told me.
No.
That is absolutely.
Because when I told her I didn't want a relationship no more, she took off, didn't call me or nothing. She started telling a bunch of people that I was a deadbeat and all that.
You are a deadbeat.
Well, whatever. That's your opinion.
How old
are
you? How old are you?
34.
34. If you're 34 and you can't afford to pay your rent and you borrow money or you take money.
Took it.
Take money.
Yeah.
I'll decide in a second whether you owe it to her. Take money
right.
from a woman who you say the relationship is over, and yet you share your bed with her, and according to you, talk about a relationship with her, and then take money from her. That makes you a deadbeat. And it makes you an amoral deadbeat. Because what you're doing is saying, listen, I need some money. She's going to give me some money. So I'll string her along. You know, I'll hug her and I'll kiss her and I'll sleep with her.
No.
And I'll sleep with her. We'll talk about our relationship.
I'm speaking.
I don't think so.
It takes two.
I'm speaking.
It takes two.
Did she take money from you?
No.
Your Honor, if I may.
Just a second. Do I look like I need any help from you?
No,
Sit down.
No, ma'am, you don't.
Sit down. You kissed her. She kissed you.
Right.
You hugged her.
Yeah.
She hugged you.
Okay. What's the point?
You took money from her.
Yeah.
She took money from you.
No.
Right. How much money does he owe you, this idiot? How much?
With interest, he owes me $3,900.
Just a second. You don't get any points from me for being an idiot. Okay?
Okay.
And if you take out an interest-bearing loan, and the interest on the loan is 87%, you'd get zero sympathy from me. Now, how much money did you give him?
$2,500, Your Honor.
That's what he's going to give you back. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all. Step out.
But, Your Honor, I had to pay $1,100 interest.
You shouldn't have taken out a loan for him, madam. You gave him $2,500. This idiot had no concept that he was going to have to pay you back $3,900.
He knew it was a loan, Your Honor.
He knew it was a loan.
And he knew about the
and
interest.
He's going to pay you back.
He was supposed to go back to work and pay me back.
Listen to me. He was supposed to go back to work. He didn't go back.
He was working.
I was working.
He was working with me. She was calling and texting.
Oh, all he does is he works everybody he knows. That's all he does.
Question?
No.
Very good. He owes her $2,500. The rest of it is her own stupidity. Goodbye.
Housekeeper Nita Bayer is suing former employer Kendra Hall for damages resulting from an injury she sustained in Kendra's home. Kendra is countersuing for the return of Nita's unearned wages.
Ms. Bayer, according to what I read in your complaint, you did some housework for Miss Hall. You fell in her house. You want her to be responsible for your medical bills and your lost wages. Ms. Hall says she's not certain that you fell in her house and injured yourself there. She's counterclaiming because she says that she paid you for an entire month and you only worked that one day. She wants you to refund to her the amount that she paid you for the remainder of the month when you didn't work. I have a few questions. Ms. Bayer, how long did you work for Ms. Hall?
7 months.
How often did you go to her home?
Every Friday starting of March 2006.
How many hours did you spend there?
Usually I spent somewhere between 7 and 8 hours a day.
What was the date of this accident in the house?
It was November 3rd, 2006.
And she had paid you for the month?
Yes, she did.
What was your monthly salary?
It was $360. I received $90 a week.
Now tell me about this fall that you took in the house. Miss Hall was not at home.
That's right.
Go ahead.
I arrived to work and I started working in the kitchen. Then I went upstairs, stripped the beds, made the beds, and then I took all the laundry down to the laundry room, and the light bulb was burned out in the laundry room. So I went into the garage to look for a ladder, and I found a 3-foot ladder. I took down the fixture, which was full of bugs and dirty. I washed it, cleaned it, went upstairs, got light bulbs that are kept upstairs in the linen closet. When I came down, I went up the 3-step ladder, went to put the bulb in and lost my balance and fell against the wash and dryer on my left side. When I got up, I felt nauseous and dizzy, so I went outside and sat in a little brick fence that's in the backyard, trying to gain my composure. And then I finally went into the house. I took some Aleve, some Excedrin.
Stop 1 second. So it would be clear and fair to say that you did not fall because the ladder broke?
No.
Because there was any imperfection in the floor? You fell because you lost your balance?
That's right.
Nobody else's fault but yours?
That's right.
Okay. Go ahead.
So since she pays me monthly, $360, she had just left that check that morning, and I never thought anything was really seriously wrong with me, and I tried to continue to work. In fact, I did continue. I finished cleaning the house, even did the laundry, very slow. Usually I leave about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. She arrived about 5 o'clock, and she asked me, "Are you still here?" And I said, "Yes, I did something foolish today. I fell and I hurt my arm. I don't know what's the matter. It really, really hurts." She quickly ran to the phone, called her sister-in-law, who I also work for, and she said, "Nita fell changing a light bulb. Do you think my home insurance will cover her if I take her to the doctor?" She said, "Okay, thank you," hung up, ran to her office, came back with some papers and said, "Yes, my home insurance does cover it, but I have to pay a $1,000 deductible, of which I will not pay." And suddenly she wasn't concerned about me anymore. And she says, "This is ridiculous." And I said, "Well, then you're not going to help me?" And she says...
So you had asked her?
Yes.
Just a second. You didn't make that clear, Miss Bayer.
I'm sorry.
So you said to her, "I finished working, but I hurt my shoulder. I want to go to the doctor. Will you pay for it?"
I didn't say, "Will you pay for it?" I asked her, "Can you help me?" That's what I said.
Well, what did you want her to do to help you?
To take to the doctor. I figured, well, since I fell in her home, that...
So you felt she was responsible?
That's right.
Well, that's what I'm saying to you, Miss Bayer, but you left that out of your story. What you made it sound like was you told her that your shoulder was hurting. Without saying another word, she went over to the phone and called her sister-in-law.
Yes.
But that's not what happened. You said, "I want to go to the doctor. Can you help me? Because you're responsible because I fell in your house." So she went to find out if that was true.
And she came back and found out that it was true.
What makes you think that if you have an accident in somebody else's home and it's your fault that they should be responsible?
Because I was under her employment at the time.
Well, that may be, but, you know, there is something that lacks common sense about that. I'm a common sense gal myself. What you told me was you fell and it was your fault.
Yes.
And you want somebody else to pay for it. That's what it comes down to. I mean, if you're taking it at face value, you may have fallen in her house. You know, I'm not necessarily saying that Miss Hall should not have assumed this responsibility. But what I'm saying to you is it doesn't flow naturally. If you fall in somebody's house and there's nothing wrong with their house, the railing isn't loose and the steps aren't uneven and there's not a slippery floor and there's no ice in the front walk, well, that shouldn't be their fault. It's your fault. You fell. That makes sense to me. The fact that most jurisdictions have superimposed some liability on the part of homeowners if they have people working in their home, that irrespective of whose fault it is, they have to take the responsibility, that's something else. But I'm just telling you, from a common sense perspective, it doesn't make sense. It makes no more sense than if you were walking down the street in front of somebody's house and there was no ice, no snow, there was nothing wrong. You were thinking about something, you fell in front of their house, and you say, well, I fell in front of their house, I'm going to sue them. You fell because you weren't being careful.
I was being very careful.
Well, if you
Your
were being
Honor.
very careful, the ladder didn't move by itself. And if you were being very careful, then maybe you had a pre-existing medical condition that caused you to become dizzy. Whatever it wasn't her fault. It was an accident.
Yes, it was.
It was an accident. An accident that was your fault. Not her ladder's fault, not her floor's fault, not her light bulb's fault, not her light fixture's fault. It was your fault. Now, I say this to you because what you want is more than just your medical bills paid. You want medical bills and lost earnings and lost wages. Why should she pay for that?
It is still an ongoing problem, Your Honor. I have proof here.
It's your ongoing problem.
That's true.
Not her ongoing problem. It's your ongoing problem. And if what you're saying is that she should have taken care of the medical bills because she didn't want to pay the deductible. Listen, she fell in your house. You know what the parameters are, right?
Yes.
That's what the law superimposes on you. I happen to think it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense to me. But that's what the law says.
I understand that. Can I please tell you
Sure.
the side of the story that I believe to be the truth? Very
but
similar.
But let me tell you something. Don't go to where you don't think that she was injured because she's got things that she's prepared to show me that she hurt her rotator cuff when she fell.
She was injured. Where? I'm not sure, because when I came home from work that day, I put my things down, got my kids in the house as I always do, and she continued to work. And I didn't run to the phone and run to anywhere. She insisted, I'm hurting. Do you have insurance? I'm like, what? I was in shock.
Well,
and
don't
I
be
didn't.
in shock. She fell off the ladder, changing a light bulb in your house.
This is what she's telling me, okay? I don't know this. I really don't. Because
Well, you weren't home.
she kept working.
She
and
told me
she's
that.
working, and she's a hard worker. She
told me that.
is. But what I don't like is that I did not say I would not pay. She told me later on the phone, you should have just paid the $1,000. I called my insurance company to see. I said, well, I don't know if there's a deductible. I'll find out. You know, we'll take care of this. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll go to county where my husband goes. Her husband's very ill. He goes to county hospital for treatment. This is what she told me. That's why I dropped it. Later, her daughter calls me. My mother, she's going to need surgery, possibly. I'm like, what has this got to do with me?
Okay, well, that's what it has to do with you. Where are the medical bills that you paid?
Okay.
Your total medical bills so far are $1,047. I don't know what this is.
I totaled everything up, lost wages, the doctor bill.
I'm not giving you any credit for lost wages, madam.
Okay.
I believe that you should pay your medical expenses. But you were paid already for the full month when you didn't work. Is that right?
On that paper in the blue I highlighted, I deducted the $270
Well,
that
I know,
owed
but you
her.
deducted it from $3,000.
Right.
I'm deducting it from the $1,047. $777. Now, it's $777 that your insurance company's not going to pay because you have a $1,000 deductible. It's your option to have a $1,000 deductible, right? You could pay more insurance and have less deductible. You choose to be a self-insurer for the first $1,000. Are you following me? You look at me like I'm talking another language.
No.
Right, but you got it, right?
I got it.
You got it. You owe her $777. Sounds to me it's fair and reasonable. I don't think you're responsible for the fact that she's not working. And you haven't worked since November?
No, I haven't.
Well, who knows when you're going to be able to go back to work?
Well, that's why I was asking for the lost wages to cover the existing bills that
She's
it
not
had.
responsible for your negligence.
Okay.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $777. That's all. Thank you.
Terry Mellinger is suing her son's former friend, 20-year-old Kenny Scott, for a loan for a motel room.
Is this your son?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
Just the one, sir, ma'am.
Doesn't he have long pants?
He does, Your Honor, but he just flew in from Tucson where he's working out in the field and he's staying in a motel, so he has limited access to clothes other than his work clothes.
Could you bring him a pair of long pants?
But I just...
I mean, he's not going to the beach.
I know, and I apologize. I just wasn't thinking.
Ms. Mellinger, this is your complaint. Mr. Scott is a friend of your son's. Are you wearing long pants?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
According to your complaint, the two of them went off oil drilling something, got a job someplace, and they were rooming together. And according to you, you made a loan to Mr. Scott in the amount of $500 because he was short on cash. Stand up on your own 2 feet with your long pants, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott says that you sent money, but you sent money at your son's request to your son. There was never an agreement by him to pay you back. That's your defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is your mother?
Yes, this is my mom, Charlotte.
Okay. Where did you go to work, Mr. Scott?
Well, at the time we were stationed in Nevada, and then the following hitch we were supposed to go down to Tucson.
And where is your home?
I live in Spokane, Washington.
How old are you?
20.
Were you paying your own way when you went to do this oil drilling?
Yes, I was.
You paid your own rent?
Not at home, no.
I'm talking about when you lived with him, when you were working. You were living together, correct, in a motel?
Correct.
Who was paying the bill?
He was.
Why?
Because I was unemployed before that, and we agreed that we would split the motel costs after I got paid, and I hadn't got paid until 2.5 weeks into the hitch.
Okay, and once you got paid, did you give him back the money?
No. Payments, and...
Am I scaring you? Am I scaring you?
No.
That's too bad. I must try harder. Now, you went to live with Dustin and you had an agreement, and your agreement with Dustin was, quite reasonably, that you would go to this place where you could both work and make a good living, make some money, and that you would split the room. But you didn't have any money.
Right.
So what Dustin does is he calls his mother and says, Mom, Kenny doesn't have any money. So I'm going to need some money to tide us over.
We talked about this agreement before we even left town. I said, I'm going to be broke. I'm going to not have any food. I'm going to need some help.
And?
He didn't help me with food or anything. He just paid for the hotel room, gave me a place to sleep.
Who paid the rest of the money? Your mother?
My mom had wired me some money for
How
food.
much did your mother wire you? No, don't look at her. I'm asking you, how much did your mother wire you?
$200.
About $200. And I'm sure your mother has proof of that, right?
Yes.
Right?
I Western Union the money and tried to get the receipt from them, and we didn't have time to get that.
Baloney. How much was the motel room?
Well, the first one we stayed at was a little higher price.
How much was the hotel room?
It's about $25 a night.
And how many nights were you there?
The first one we were there maybe about 4 or 5, and then we switched over because that hotel was run down.
Stand up. No, I can't stand to look at your knees. Over here. $25 a night. What was the second room?
Second room was the same. $25 a night, 25.
And how many nights in total were you there?
The second room?
Both rooms.
Both rooms.
Dustin.
Okay. The first hotel was about 5 days, and the second hotel about 21 days in the second hotel, something like that.
So you worked a total of 26 days?
Yes.
$650 plus tax, right? So it probably comes to close to $800. Did you, in fact, give Dustin back $400?
No, I didn't, Your Honor.
Why not?
Well, it was told to me that I owed his mother. I did not owe Dustin.
You owed somebody for half the motel room.
I realize that.
So my question is, why didn't you pay it to either Dustin or his mother?
I started to pay it to his mother.
You did?
She agreed that $100 a month would work, and I gave her $100
good.
cash.
Right.
And next thing I knew, I had a letter in the mail saying we're going to court.
Did he give you $100 in cash?
Yes, ma'am. He did give me $100 in cash.
Did you write 2 checks to Mrs. Mellinger
Yes, I did.
on an account that didn't have any money?
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't encourage him. He did the wrong thing. You're 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a debt in this world, you're supposed to repay it. You're not supposed to take money from strangers and then make them enemies by not paying them back. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
The quickest way to lose a friend is to loan them money. I want you to remember that forever.
I will.
If you're a good guy and you lend somebody money, you lend a friend money, there's only one thing that I know for certain. You're going to lose that friend and you're going to be the bad guy. That's a lesson your mother should have learned a long time ago.
Your Honor, I've told Dustin that time and time again, but I am the guilty one here.
Well, you're the guilty one.
I
Because
didn't
here's
do
a
what I
young man
normally do.
who has a mother. If he needed money, he should have called his mother.
Right.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. That's all.
Store owner Daniel Alvarez is suing his customer, Carmen Burgos, for cashing a counterfeit check at his store. Carmen says she was the victim of an internet scam.
Mr. Alvarez, what kind of store do you have, sir?
I have a general store. We sell music, we cash checks, we sell satellite. It's a little bit of everything.
The defendant was a customer of yours?
A regular customer. She had been there at least 4 or 5 occasions cashing checks.
And you charge a fee for that?
Yes, we do.
According to your complaint, sir, she came in with a check, which you cashed for her.
Correct.
And it turned out to be a bad check.
Yes.
And your bank withdrew the money from your account. You want her to compensate you for the check.
That is correct.
Ms. Burgos says it was a bad check. She was conned with this check, and she's sorry that you're out the money, but it's not her fault. It's the fault of the people who scammed her. That's her defense. Is that correct?
Yes,
Ms.
Your
Burgos?
Honor. I shouldn't
So
be
I
held
want you to
liable
tell
for it.
What?
I shouldn't be held liable for it because I had
Ms.
the
Burgos.
evidence. Yes.
Let's start from the beginning. Where did you get this check from?
It was mailed to me.
From an employer?
No, I'm always on the computer and I'm always filling out sweepstakes and filling out numbers for lotto and that. So when I received the check...
So you received the check because you thought you won a prize?
Yes, correct.
But she didn't tell me that, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Don't interrupt her.
I'm sorry.
Your Honor, he wasn't there at the moment.
Listen to me.
Yes.
You got a check in the mail and you didn't know where it came from.
Correct. Yes, I thought
so
it was
you thought
a
maybe
sweepstakes.
that you had played around with on the computer?
Yes, correct.
You have a copy of the letter?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Well, I have a copy because I gave Mr. Alvarez the original and the envelope that it came in.
Shh. Mr. Alvarez, I don't want you to interrupt her.
That's the original. That is the original. Cool.
And I also gave him the envelope it came in.
Now, this letter says that you won the North American Ballot Sweepstakes.
Correct.
And it tells you to call Debbie Baum in Canada.
Yes, Your Honor, and that's who I called.
Just for my own information, when you called her, what is it that you claim she said to you?
Well, I called her because at first I, like...
Joe, tell me. Just answer my question.
I asked her about that I had received a check for a sweepstake for the sum of $2,900. And she told me yes, and I told her what it says here for processing. She goes, oh, no, that's no problem. You could go ahead and change. That's part of what you have won. There's 72 people that are in with it.
I read the letter. There's 72 people that are going to share in $1.8 million.
Right, and that's just the beginning of it, so you could go ahead and cash it.
Cash
so
it.
that's right.
Fine.
I went to
you have
Mr.
a copy of the check?
Yes, I have
I'd
the
like
original.
To see it. Oh, you have the original?
Yes.
Love
the bank
to see
returned it to me.
Love to see it. So you took the check into him?
Yes, correct.
To cash?
Yes. Like I've taken other checks.
State Employees Credit Union of Maryland, Inc. Well, I have to tell you, this certainly looks like, to my untrained eye, an official kind of check.
Exactly. That's why I went to him and I cashed it.
Miss Burgos, I got it. You thought you woke up and it was your lucky day.
Yes, correct.
Bird, take a look at this. An interesting looking check. Right?
Wow. It even says official check.
It even says
Correct.
official
That's
check.
why I
and, just a minute, and they don't even ask you to do anything, like
Correct.
send them
That's
back
why-
half in this letter.
That's why I was like...
Don't, I'm speaking. Don't bother me. They don't even ask you to send back half. You know, sometimes say, send us $500 as a processing fee, and they just said, here's your $2,900.
Does it in the back?
Yeah, she's signed it, and it came back that it was suspected counterfeit. In any event, you gave her the money.
Yes, I did.
You have proof of that?
Just from the bank when they took the money out because...
I'd like to see it. Now, when you were notified by the bank,
Right.
yeah, they charged your account for $2,950.
Correct.
Okay. Now, when did you cash the check for her? On what date?
Around the 14th of November.
And the bank returned the check to you when?
They didn't return it until the 20th or 21st, but they notified me 2 days later.
So
First, they
on the
notified me.
16th.
Correct.
And when did you
I'm sorry, Your Honor,
notify?
it was after that.
Stop talking out! This is not a tea party! Now, when did you notify Miss Burgos?
That same day.
On the 16th,
Exactly.
2 days later.
Exactly.
How did you notify her?
I called her son-in-law because I know her son-in-law very well, and I called him up and I asked him to bring her over.
And when did he bring her over?
That same day.
On the 16th?
Exactly.
Okay, now tell me on the 16th what you said to her and what she
I
said.
told her, Miss Burgos, this check has returned counterfeit from the bank.
And she said to you?
I didn't know. And she produced this letter.
Good.
Correct. I said I
Just,
didn't know.
So why didn't you return the money to him?
At the moment, I didn't have the money. I had paid some of debts that I had.
Just a second. What difference does that make to him? Put your hand down. First of all, it's 2 days later.
It's not 2 days later, Your Honor. It was more than 2 days
How
later.
many days?
It was about 4 or 5 days later.
4 days. Show me what debts you paid.
Well, I had some medical bills that I had to pay, so I went.
Just a second. So you paid your medical bills. Medical bills. What else? What else did you pay?
My electric bill, my phone bill, all my bills, and I.
Now let me ask you this question, Ms. Burgos. Before you came into this cash windfall, how did you pay your electric bill?
Well, I would pay it monthly.
From what?
From what I receive, and also.
What do you mean from what you receive? I don't understand that statement. Do you work?
Well, I get a Social Security check every month.
For what?
For a disability.
What's the nature of your disability?
For asthma, arthritis.
You have asthma and arthritis and you can't work?
No.
I know a lot of people who have asthma and arthritis who can work just fine.
I was diagnosed with disability. So I...
Wait, just a second. When were you diagnosed with a disability from asthma and arthritis?
2 years ago.
Ms. Burgos, I'm believing less and less of what you tell me, madam, but I will tell you this. If you paid your bills, which you are responsible for paying, your medical bills, your electric bill, your phone bill, and I don't care what other kind of bills you paid, allegedly, and I know you're lying. Listen to me, and I know you're lying anyway.
No, I bought a few Christmas presents.
Listen to me very carefully, and I know you're lying anyway. Then you have to pay him back the money.
Correct.
You paid your bills. You paid your bills. You're a scammer. Let me ask you this question. Who do you live with?
I live with my son and my daughter.
How old are they?
My daughter's 22 and my son is 19.
And what does your daughter do for a living?
She works. And my son
And your
also.
son?
He works.
Works.
They're the ones that help me with all the bills.
Because you don't work?
Yes.
Because of your asthma?
Yes.
She didn't tell me that. That day when she came in, she told me that she had only spent about $500 to $700
I told you that's what I had.
Miss Burgos!
$500 to
Miss Burgos!
I asked her specifically.
That's what I told him I had.
Did you give it to him?
No. He told me...
Shh. So why did you spend that money instead of giving it back to him?
Well, I didn't have it on me at that time.
Why didn't you go home and get it?
The gentleman told me, Mr. Alvarez told me that he was going to send that letter, the letter that they had received to the bank. Yes, it is, Mr. Alvarez.
Just a second. So what? If there's a question, listen to me. If there's a question, why didn't you say, listen, if there's a question and if this check was bad, I don't want Mr. Alvarez to be out the rest of this money. I'm going to hold what I haven't spent and give it to him if he's out of pocket.
Well, I had held it. I had it.
So why didn't you give it to him?
Because when I spoke to Mr. Alvarez on the phone, I told him I have the $500. He says, no, I want all the money. That's what he said.
That is
and
true?
I says, well, I don't have all the money at the moment, okay? I could give you at least $500 at a time. He said, no, I want all the money at the same time.
You want to know something? You're a scammer. You've been scamming Social Security in all probability for the last 2 years. I don't know how you got Social Security disability. How old are you?
I'm 47.
47. I know people who are 67 with asthma, they work.
Oh, I am disabled.
You must have had a really, really fine lawyer. You owe him $2,950, Ms. Burgos. You were a scammer, and you knew you did the wrong thing as soon as he told you that check came back.
Yes.
People very rarely get windfalls of money from the internet. Very rarely. Don't look like this to me.
I'm not a scammer because
I don't know how I got Social Security disability. I don't know where I got this check from. I don't know. Well, now you know that this man who was doing you a favor cashed your check and got penalized because of your stupidity. He got penalized. But you said, listen, I got the money. Let him go after the people. Let him go after. I'm speaking.
No, I didn't.
Let him go after the people.
I did not think that way.
Well, then you should have returned the money that you hadn't spent.
Okay, he didn't want the money that I had not spent.
So you spent the rest. Just a second. Hey,
I still have the $500.
Supposed to set an example, Miss Burgos, for your children. You're not supposed to be a scammer.
I'm not a scammer.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And you believed in getting something for nothing.
No,
and you put him in a very precarious position. You've got a lot of nerve.
I've never
You've got a lot of nerve. Your children are not going to be proud of you after today. Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,950. That's all. Step out.
25-year-old Leah Miller is suing her ex-roommate, 21-year-old waitress Angelica Simpson, for her share of the furniture purchased for their apartment.
Miss Miller, you and Miss Simpson were friends and roommates for a while. You claimed that when she moved out, she took half the furniture in the apartment that you had both purchased on a credit card.
Correct.
You're stuck with the credit card, and she took half the furniture.
Correct.
Ms. Simpson says she did not take half the furniture.
Correct.
She only took a bed.
A bedroom set.
Bed. And she left items there that are worth far more than the bed that she took. Now, when did you move in together?
February of 2005.
Was it a one-year lease?
It was actually 15 months.
And when did you move out?
I left the last weekend in January.
And that was by agreement?
Correct.
When did you purchase the furniture?
February of 2005.
What did you purchase?
She purchased a bedroom set. I purchased a bedroom set.
When you say she purchased a bedroom set and you purchased one, were they purchased on two different credit cards or one credit card?
No, they did a joint account for both of us. So we were both liable for it.
Okay. Continue.
I also purchased a living room set, and she purchased her bedroom set, which included a bed, a dresser, an end table, a mattress. I purchased the same thing, plus a living room set, which included a couch, a coffee table, an ottoman, and a love seat.
Okay, go ahead.
One night, I came home, and I saw her and her friends playing quarters on my brand new coffee table. I confronted her about it.
When you say you purchased the living room furniture,
yes,
were you jointly paying the bill with her?
We had separated her cost from my cost, and we came up with an agreement that she would pay me $60 a month for her portion, and then I would pay the rest.
She only has responsibility for the bedroom furniture.
Correct.
And that's all that you're suing for.
Well, also, as the time went on, as we were living together, I found things missing from my room.
I don't care about things missing from your room.
Well, I had to purchase a lock to put on there, and I came home with her playing games on my...
Listen to me. I don't care if you had to put a lock on your room. I read it. You had to put a lock on your room for $2?
It was actually 15. Yeah.
In the scheme of things, you're talking about nothing.
Well, I had things missing from my room. Shirts, underwear I had missing from my room.
Good. I'm not bothering with that.
Yeah. Okay.
You had other people living there, other people staying there, other people staying over. Don't bother me with nonsense. You hear about furniture.
Well,
don't throw in the kitchen sink to a lawsuit because judges get irritated, especially this one. Okay. How much was your bedroom furniture?
The whole set together was around $1,300. It was like $1,300 and some change. Actually, Your Honor, I have the evidence that hers was $1,412. That would be including the tax, probably.
$1,412. And how much of that did you pay, Ms. Simpson?
I started paying her when I moved out. Like I said, I left a TV there that I had purchased for $500. There's also entertainment center, dishes, mirrors, things of that nature that were there that I had left there that I didn't take.
Just a second. Did you have, Ms. Simpson, any agreement?
Yes.
Listen, you're not letting me finish my sentence. Did you have an agreement with Miss Miller that in lieu of paying Bill $1,412, you were going to leave items in the apartment?
No.
Then I'm not interested in what you left.
But that's where I was going with this. I had moved out of the apartment and had paid her $55 for so-on months. Then
just a second.
You
talk very.
Didn't start. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
You paid her $55 a month for how many months?
It was for 6 months.
Okay.
No.
Shh, just a second. $55 a month for 6 months.
Yes.
Okay, that would be $330.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Then I'm a waitress, so I make all my money in tips, and I was paying her in cash. An incident arose with my mom when she pointed out that it was both my name and Miss Miller's name on the contract. So if I was paying her the money, how would I know that she was paying it to More Furniture? So I went into More Furniture and wanted to separate my name for her name on the account. They told me I was not allowed to do that.
Correct.
And that if we didn't pay off the money by the date with no interest, we would have to pay all of the back interest. When I brought this up to her, she did not want to give me receipts for the back payments, nor she had also moved out of the state and had given me a P.O. box where I could send her money, but I wasn't getting anything in return for paying her money. So my agreement was, well, if you're not...
What do you mean your agreement?
Or my side of it was, if you're not going to be proving to me that I'm paying you and give me a copy of the statement, then I will pay the money directly to More Furniture, but not to you.
So
you don't need to be the middleman.
Did you do that?
No, because she hasn't been making the payments. They told me that...
Don't tell me what they told you.
Okay.
Do you have your statement?
Yeah, I have all the statements right here.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Here's the statement. Sorry.
How much money, if any, did she give you after she moved out?
$320.
No, she's making the payments.
Well, and this is my issue is, like you said, my furniture and her furniture is together, and there wasn't a minimum payment. So when or if it's not paid off, it's still gonna hurt my credit. That's what I'm saying. I have no problem paying the furniture. That's not the issue. I will pay the furniture and more furniture. It was contacting Leah to make the payment.
But right now it's more than $1,412 because right now they've added interest.
Right.
Right.
But they won't separate us from each other.
That's why. So there's just a second. Well, she's paying something. You're paying nothing.
Sure. No, and I understand that. But
But you have to pay something, madam. Where are you sleeping?
Well, I have a house.
You're sleeping on the bed.
Yes.
So you have to pay something.
I understand that. But I have an agreement with more furniture to pay the furniture.
I don't see that. Where are you standing there all by yourself with a big smile? Where is the agreement that you have with more furniture
I can't get a copy of it because my name and her name's on it without her permission.
Just a second. So how can you have an agreement without a copy of the contract?
Well, that would be the original contract.
No.
Okay.
1,412 less 320 is $1,092.
Can I say something?
Sure.
In the months that I have been paying it, I've had to pay extra, and I was working 2 jobs. I know it's $60.
That's good for you.
But I have had back payments and all this stuff that I've had to come up with.
Good. That's what happens when you act stupid and take out a joint credit card with somebody. She owes you $1,092. And as soon as you receive that money, you will sign an agreement with her that the court will prepare that you are totally indemnifying her against any claim by Miller Furniture for this furniture, and they can deduct forthwith from your salary or your income tax refund, if any. Okay. You do work, don't you?
Yes.
Perfect. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,092. Wait around to sign the contract. Thank you.
Mitchell Carson is suing the mother of his child, Michelle Harris, and her husband, Todd Harris, for the return of attorney fees for a failed adoption.
Mr. Carson, you and Mrs. Harris have a child together. How
Correct,
old
ma'am.
is that child?
He's 8 years old, ma'am.
Did you ever live with him?
No.
This is your claim. The mother of your child, Ms. Harris, is married to Mr. Harris. They've been married for how long?
3 years, Your Honor.
Do you have any children other than this child?
Yes, 2.
Your former girlfriend, you weren't married, is that right? And you spoke about the possibility of her husband adopting your son. And you thought about it for a while. Ultimately, you agreed that that might be a good idea. And you went ahead and hired a lawyer.
She hired the lawyer. She said she has to petition the lawyer.
You paid for the lawyer?
I did, because they said that they couldn't afford it.
She subsequently changed her mind.
Correct.
About the adoption, and you want that money back.
Correct.
Why did you change your mind about the adoption?
We never did change our mind, Your Honor. We simply moved out of the area. I had been searching for work for a good 4 years and couldn't find anything but maybe temp work or part-time. We couldn't afford to take care of our children, so we started looking elsewhere for work, and Oregon had a great rate of employment, higher wages, lower cost of living, so we decided to move there and then pursue the adoption when we got settled.
Mr. Carson, when was the last time you saw your son?
I believe it was about 3 years ago.
Why?
We just had such a lack of communication together, and she lived about 100 miles away, and it just made it real difficult for us to communicate together. And that was probably a lot of my fault, because I should have remained involved. Okay. But that's why we were, the end result was the adoption.
Mr. Carson, when was the last time you supported your son?
I pay child support every month.
How much do you pay?
I pay $400 a month.
Is he up to date in his child support?
I think he's a little bit behind, but not much.
I believe him when he says he pays child support. So you're not able to use this lawyer?
Correct. What it ended up happening was I paid for the attorney, and then they sent me some documents, which I signed. It was just simple, one form that I had to sign to my release of interest, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Termination of parental rights.
Correct. And then it was on her. And about 6 months later or so, I contacted her attorney, and her attorney had said at that point she hadn't spoken with her, had no contact with her at all, and actually at that moment said, you know, I don't even think she's going to do this. Which is fine. I don't. If she doesn't want to do the adoption, I mean, I'm completely capable and okay with paying child support, you know, till he's 18 years old. But when she came to me with the idea of doing the adoption, and I agreed to it, I thought in good faith, when she said they couldn't afford it, that I paid for it, that they would go through with it. And then I called her and asked her why she wasn't doing it. It was at that point that she said it was because, you know, financially they couldn't do it.
So they needed your child support to help support the household?
Sure. Correct. And also at that point, I had contacted Michelle to find out what was going on, and then she told me she was moving. According to our document, she has to give me 30 days written notice of moving. I had no idea she was going to move until I contacted her to ask her what was happening.
Well, that may be written into your contract. However, since you haven't seen your son in 3 years, it really doesn't make much difference. Mr. Harris, are you working now?
No, not at the present time.
Are you working now?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
For whom?
I work for a company that deals with clinical technology services for
How much
a
do you earn?
$15.25 an hour, and I support all 5 of us.
No, you don't support all 5 of you. He helps support all. When was the last time your husband worked full-time? And
I would
where?
say it was for a landscaping company in Olympia, and it was a year and a half, 2 years ago.
We're not sure of the exact date.
Well, she says it's a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Well, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Why is that ridiculous?
It's ridiculous not to work when you have 2 children. When did you move?
We moved in March of '06.
So you moved from, just a minute, so you moved from one place where he can't get a job for a year to another place, and now he's still not working.
No,
Doesn't that
that's
clue?
not exactly correct. I worked for a company in Portland as a steam cleaner. I did that for 2.5 months. I also worked doing mill shutdowns for a temporary job. It's not like I haven't worked.
So I'm glad you're working. I'm glad everything is wonderful with you. The strong probability exists that they're not going to let you off the hook so fast.
Ma'am, can I add something, please?
Yeah.
The reason why they told me why he's having a hard time finding work and why they couldn't do the adoption is because when they moved to Portland, Michelle told me that he had a warrant out for his arrest. She told me that's what kept us from going into court. Her attorney told me that when they moved to
Just
Portland...
a second. Well, that's very easy to
Am I in
figure
jail?
out. Shh. Turn around. What was the warrant for, Miss Harris? I
had
didn't
an
speak
old
to you.
parole
I didn't speak to you. I said, what was the warrant for, Mrs. Harris?
His warrant was for parole violation from 1996.
When did you know about his parole violation?
We didn't know about it until we moved to Oregon. However, we discussed past legal issues with the attorney, and she said that that shouldn't make a difference. Also, just to clarify, we had no agreement with him to pay him back.
Well, but no, just a second. But you had an agreement to pursue the adoption.
Correct.
That's your agreement.
I didn't.
And
You wanted my
No,
son.
just Mr. Carson. Shh, Mr. Carson.
Sorry, ma'am.
I'm just saying, Your Honor, at no time had I talked to Mitch about the adoption.
Then you can sit down. Because you're not working anyway. She's working. She'll pay. Sit down. Sit down. You had an agreement with him that in exchange for giving up his parental rights, your husband would assume the parental responsibility, which includes support.
And
what happened was it became very secondary in your mind with all the other trouble that you have. You have now 3 children in your house. You're working at $15 an hour. Not great. But you can't do that. If he's giving you the money to pay for the lawyer, which he did, because you agreed to pursue this matter and then change your mind, in my mind, you've breached an agreement with him.
We never made an agreement to...
Just a second. That's why you're here.
We never said we wouldn't do the adoption, Your Honor. Circumstances
Then when you...
stopped it.
Listen to me. When you move back to the jurisdiction where he can use the lawyer that he paid for, you could sue him for the money. Right now, you're going to pay for the lawyer. How much was it?
The total amount that we ended up paying the attorney was $1,062, ma'am.
We weren't living off of his child support. We honestly wanted to do the adoption.
Well,
and
listen
when we
to me,
moved,
Miss Harris. You've been married once?
Twice. This is my 2nd marriage.
You weren't married to him so that you had, I would consider, 3 relationships. 2 marriages, 1 relationship. Is that fair? You have 3 children?
Yes.
How old are you?
I am 34.
The likelihood of this man celebrating your 25th wedding anniversary is 0. So that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be very unwise for him to adopt this child. Judge him for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,062.
Thank you, Your
That's
Honor.
all.